Do Americans actually keep track of where north is all the time? Seriously, how do you do it? I see in movies all the time conversations going like just head east for 20 miles. I mean, I'm not a compass where TF is east, supposing I can't see where the sun's setting rising OFC. When your cities are built on a grid, it's much easier. A lot of this depends on where in America you live. Back home on the East Coast, roads were laid out like the cartographers just threw strings at a map. It was almost impossible for me to keep my internal compass oriented. I live in Phoenix, Arizona now. All the streets are in a grid pattern, so it's way easier to know which way is north. If I am someplace I know decently well, I absolutely know where north is. It's like knowing left versus right or up versus down. I have read that in some cultures this is basic information and everyone just knows. You could tell someone that there is a spider approaching their south leg, and they would instantly know what you meant. Not sure I am there. But yeah. In every city I spend time in, I usually have a pretty good sense of compass directions. Anywhere I stand in my city I can see the Rocky Mountains, so I always know where west is. Pretty easy to find north from there. Yes, we have to be prepared for the Canadian invasion at all times. Had a buddy, Jewish, who was taking a road trip with me. Asked Google for directions. Instructions said head north and my friend joked north. Who do they think we are, Jewish and Clark? Still makes me laugh. Sun rises in the east and sets in the west. Today I learned some people don't have a general sense of where N is. I don't think this is American specific. Do you not know where you are most of the time? If someone says they're east of me, I have a rough idea of where that is. North, south, west. I think newer developments tend to have a big main road by which people orient themselves. So in Toronto I always know where I am in relation to Yonge and know Yonge in north-south. At home I know the streets run east-west. If you're driving on a freeway, usually the overhead signs will indicate which direction you're going. I don't know why, but I can usually tell during the day even if it's cloudy. At night not as well, but hit it about 80% of the time. Left and right boggle me every time. Once I stopped to call a warehouse for directions. I knew I was close, but this city spit makes no sense to me. The man had a hard time with me till I finally asked him if he was east or west of the intersection. I was calling from. Smooth sailing then. Many of the largest cities are built right next to major bodies of water. That sort of landmark makes it very easy to know which way is which. My husband knows. I have no idea. He says things like, head east sir. I say, which way is that? He says, towards the mountains. Folks. There are mountains on like 3.5 sides of us. I have no freaking clue. Well, you live in one city town, right? Once you learn which direction is north in that city, you are covered for the vast majority of your time. I have no idea which way is north if I happen to be visiting another location. But within my own city, yeah, I memorized the one data point of which direction north is. It's not very hard to memorize one data point. From a young age I've always known my directions. The road runs certain ways. Certain local landmarks are in a known direction. The time of day and the direction of the sun or the stars as tools to be uses as need be was taught to me in school as well. Now that I think about it, it is a bit weird that I can take my ass anywhere and point in a direction if I'm asked. I've never really thought about it. Streets and major highways go north, south, east and west. Average person doesn't usually know which way is north unless they're pretty familiar with the area. Most don't give directions like head east 20 miles anymore either. That was more common back before cell phones and GPS were a thing. Yes, I've always been good with direction. A bit of this comes from an understanding of maps and your city area. Most grids are roughly north to south. So if you know a main street goes north-south, you can deduce a street that crosses that would be east-west. Ground yourself to north and think of yourself as a compass. Forget visualizing it. If the sun's out, see where it is. It'll rise from your right and set on your left. A lot of our cars also have compasses built into them. My Tahoe had it in the rear view mirror, and a lot of our major highways and roads have it as part of the names, so even if you don't know, it's telling you which direction you're going. Saying turn left or right mean the opposite depending what direction. Saying east or west clears that up. It's really easy if you live in the Chicago area. The lake is always east. Also, what infuriates me about GPS and Google Maps. Head east. Where the fuck is east, bitch? I was taught from a young age to take a look at a map of a town city I plan to be in longer than a day or two. That way I can visualize directionality when I'm navigating. I usually pick 2 or 3 major roads to memorize which way they go. Then I can base everything else off of these roads. In USA they have a sun and it rises in the east and sets in the west from there. Plucky individualists harness the frontier spirit and deduce where north is. That can't work in Europe 'cause of the metric system. Y'all can't tell which way the sun rises and sets. Do you not have a sun? It depends on where you live. If it's a grid with NS/EW streets, and they're labeled as such, then it's easy. Where I live, the mountains are always west. So it's easy to know which way is north. When I was in coastal Virginia, the ocean was always east. When I lived in New England, I had no idea at any point which direction was which. Unless I looked at the trees for moss at some point, I could tell direction from that, but I don't remember anymore. So it just depends. Your cell phone has a compass, most likely. Most roads in North America are built on a grid-based system. Highways travel east to west and north to south. Very few highways going diagonally. Most city streets are organized in streets and avenues. So in order to figure out what cardinal direction you are facing, you just have to figure out where you are first. It's easy on the west coast. West is where the ocean is. I don't. My dad does, and it confuses the hell out of me. He'll say something is on the east side of the grocery store and I just get lost, he tells, by imagining the nearby highway which goes north to south. Honestly, I never have any clue. We have signs on the highway that remind us which direction we're headed in, plus we just know. When I lived in Indiana, middle of nowhere, USA. Absolutely not. Only when driving, and even not usually then. Now I live in San Francisco, a peninsula. It's not always a conscious thought. But yes, to know where I'm going, I always know which way is which. Mostly more so by colloquial identifiers: to the ocean, to the bay, down the peninsula, up to Marin. But to me those are west, east, south, north. So yes. If you're in a city that you've known for years, it's really not that hard. Especially if you're in a grid system. Phoenix, my beloved.